Good morning, everyone. This is Manish Agnihotri. Along with me, we have Mr. Girish Agarwal, Managing Director, and Santosh Bhatt, CFO. The way we have planned today's call is Girish will have his opening remarks, and then we'll open the floor for Q&A. Over to you, Girish.
Thank you, Manish. Good morning, everyone. The company delivered a strong quarter. Again, our revenue year on year was increased by 14%. EBITDA was higher by 41%. EBIT year on year was higher by 56%. Our margins were at 61% EBITDA margins. The increase in revenue is largely due to higher liquid and RoRo volumes. Our liquid volumes were higher year on year by 32%, with much higher LPG volumes, and our RoRo volumes increased substantially by 175%, with a very strong export volume of passenger vehicles. Container volumes continued to be a tough market, and our volumes year on year dropped by 17%. It was mainly transshipment volume that declined. The cargo mix, hence, has improved. On the dry bulk side, our fertilizer volume increased by 38%. However, overall dry bulk volumes declined by 18%. I will pause here and open for questions.
Before we start the questions, I would request everyone to keep themselves on mute and unmute yourself only when you are speaking, so that we don't have any disturbance. Thank you. Deepak, over to you.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Just wanted to understand what is the outlook for the transshipment. It's been declining, and in the last call we discussed it was related to the Red Sea, the congestions, and also the fact that many shipping lines have been skipping some port calls to the region. So are you seeing any improvement on that regard? And secondly, have liquid and RoRo grown substantially enough to offset the decline in transshipment volumes? Because the revenue growth was kind of surprising. Thank you.
Yeah. Just on the container piece, and let me first talk a little bit in general about the containers piece. Because of the Red Sea crisis, as you rightly said, there is constraint in the market in terms of capacity. Also, with the freight rates, which have experienced a significant hike between Asia and Europe, a lot of equipment flow also moves into Asia, primarily China. And that's led to relative lower capacities and hence the skip call. So in general, for us, the container market has seen a decline. The transshipment specifically we spoke about last time, you're right. But the transshipment reduction is essentially due to a network change that Maersk effected towards the end of last year, which is they pulled out their Jade service, which was primarily a transshipment product. And hence, the transshipment reduction is also a little bit more structural for us, where because of the Jade service no longer available, that transshipment volume reduction has happened. So, I mean, it's a mix of two. The transshipment volume reduction will continue to be there because there's no Jade service. On the container outlook, while there is a reduction now, what we are seeing is that it is now stabilizing. So we expect, I mean, while this quarter continues to be, I think, tough, we think that things will stabilize and things will start to improve as we move to Q3 and Q4.
Okay, and if you could provide some outlook on the EXIM part, how's that been faring? And probably if you could also touch upon the realizations during the quarter for the different cargoes which you typically provide.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so I can start with the realization. So the container realization continued to be in the range of 8,000 to 8,600 rupees per TEU. For bulk, it is in the range of 450 to 700, and the same for liquid as well.
Okay. And the EXIM outlook?
So EXIM outlook, fundamentally, as I said, because of the whole Red Sea issues and the tonnages being moved out of, clearly reduced capacity and hence the tonnages being reduced and skip calls. We believe this quarter to be continuing to be a difficult quarter, but things are stabilizing as we see in the market. So I do believe Q3 and Q4 will be better on the EXIM front.
Okay. And the typical question on the concession renewal progress.
I think progress is good. Again, I'll say the same thing. Is essentially there's no red flags. We're meeting the relevant authorities. The discussions are ongoing with them. We are not seeing any red flags. We understand the policy framework will be laid out by the government of Gujarat. So we await that policy framework. But again, as I say, there are no red flags.
Okay. And then this was the third consecutive quarter when coal was not handled. So I have asked this in the last couple of quarters as well. When will we have any visibility if GPPV will resume handling coal?
Okay. See, again, as I spoke, we have some operational challenges, and especially in the monsoons, those operational challenges actually exacerbate. So my sense is we'll not handle coal at least for this quarter, and then we will review the situation post the monsoons.
Okay, thank you. That's it from my side. I'll jump back in the queue. Thank you, Girish and Manish, and Santosh as well.
You, Nidhi Shah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking my question. So again, just harping on some of the previous questions. You spoke about the realization, but just looking at the realization figures, it's a little I don't know. It feels that maybe this 14% growth that we are seeing in revenues, just looking at the realization, looks to be a little too good. Is there any some kind of one-off that we have taken this quarter in terms of revenue, something that we could probably not see in the future quarters?
So Nidhi, so basically, yes, there is a one-off because we do have a rebate scheme with most of our customers which are volume related. So whenever we see if the certain volumes are not likely to meet, then those reversals are taken into account in a particular quarter. So from that perspective, yes, those are the one-off because not necessarily the entire amount is pertaining to the same quarter.
All right. And also just a little update on the liquid terminal that is being developed. So could you just tell us how is that progressing?
So we are still working on the various permits and clearances. We've got a initial NOC from GMB. Now we are working on the environment clearance. Once the environment clearance comes, then we'll go back to the GMB for final approvals.
All right. And my absolute last question would be, is that would it be fair to assume that at this point, RoRo makes up about closer to 10 to 15% of your revenues this quarter, or would that be a false assumption?
Yes, it's fair to assume that.
Yes. Bottom line is clearly more. So RoRo makes more on the bottom line than on the revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I assume 10 to 15 of the revenue, could I safely say 25 to 30 of the bottom line?
So I don't know, Santosh.
So I will not really comment on the bottom line of this business right now, Nidhi. But what you mentioned about the revenue is a fair assumption there.
Okay. And on this on RoRo, what do you see the outlook for this year? And in general, we see that RoRo volumes, the way that GBPL is being able to do, no other port is seeing this much growth in RoRos, at least as far as I'm aware. So could you give some color on that?
I think structurally India's manufacturing capability is significantly improving on the automobile side. we are seeing a lot more of manufacturing capacities coming up. I mean, Maruti has announced a significant expansion of their capacities from 2 million to 4 million over the next 6 to 7 years. It's at the back of one of the key reasons is also export volume. We are seeing export volume in general growing out of India, and we believe that this is, from our perspective, we are really well positioned to take significant growth on the Ro-Ro side. This year, I mean, we've done this month about 38, 39,000 cars. I expect a similar number ongoing quarter on quarter, at least for this financial year.
All right. And how much percentage of your Ro-Ro volumes would approximately be exports, and how much would be coastal?
How much will be exports and?
How much would be say shipping to another state?
No, there's no coastal. This is all exports.
All is export. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Those were my questions.
Thank you. Nimesh Shah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Again, I had one question on the EXIM front. So if you could just highlight how we are doing vis-a-vis the West Coast volumes, and how are we trending in terms of our market share? So you mentioned that we are witnessing some skip calls, but is this skip call true for the entire Indian West Coast line, or they are just calling one port and probably dumping all the containers at one port? So some highlight on that front.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a transshipment perspective, it is very specific to us because, as I talked about, the fact that the Jade service was calling us, and it was a transshipment product of Maersk, which is being withdrawn, and hence the loss of transshipment volume is ours rather than the West Coast, so to say. We've seen increase in transshipment volumes in some other ports on the western side. So from that effect, they have seen higher volumes. In general, because of our loss of the transshipment volume, our market share has declined.
Got it. But the thing on the EXIM front, EXIM market share would be stable. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, it should be stable, but again, we look at an overall market share perspective. So overall, as I said, because of our transshipment volume reduction, our market shares are.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Achal, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, good morning, team. Thank you for the opportunity. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sir, if you could quantify the rebate reversal for the quarter?
Is in the range of in the 100 million INR mentioned.
100 million. Okay. Understood. The second question I had, with respect to EXIM, can you give us some sense in terms of, because if you look at the other ports, the volumes are growing, while for us, there is a decline. So, have we also seen a decline in the EXIM cargo, or there is still some growth in EXIM for the quarter?
There is, as I was talking about, the entire Red Sea issues, specifically to, certain specific shipping line, the skip calls have increased, and hence our EXIM volume for the quarter has also declined slightly year on year. Overall, I mean, it's declined for a specific shipping line. A large portion of that is covered up by the other shipping lines. So, I mean, I would not really like to worry about it much, simply because I think the things are stabilizing, and we are already seeing those skip calls reducing in this quarter. So as we move forward, I think that thing should stabilize.
Would you be able to quantify, sir, in terms of the skipped calls, in terms of number of calls or number of containers which got skipped?
No, we would not like to specifically call that out at this point in time. Overall, as I said, for the quarter, we are a 17% decline.
Right. The second question I had was with respect to lines addition, if there is anything which is likely over next few quarters in terms of line addition, where you are at the advanced stage of discussion and you expect certain conversion, or the growth has to be driven by the existing lines itself?
No. I mean, it has to happen on both ways, but at this stage, uh, it's not appropriate for me to call out anything in terms of what we are doing from a commercial perspective.
Understood. And just one more question, if I may, sir, with respect to macro. Is it possible to give us some sense in terms of the total volumes in India, how much would be transshipment? And of the EXIM, how much is the transshipment is being done in the ports of Sri Lanka or Singapore, which could be at risk given the another large player setting up transshipment terminals?
I don't have that numbers handy, honestly, about the volume in transshipment in Tanjung Palas or Singapore or Colombo. I don't have that information, but that information is readily available.
Understood. Um, Okay, sir. I think that's about it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bharneda, please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, team. I believe in one of the earlier responses you alluded to one-off due to revenues being booked related to earlier quarters in this quarter. Is that right? And if so, can you tell me the quantum?
Yeah. So what I mentioned was that we certainly have a contract with the customer which are volume-based rebates, and whenever there are variation in terms of the committed volume versus the actual, then we do have the adjustments on the revenue to the revenue on that front. So these adjustments are related to those adjustments. The amount which I mentioned was in the range of around 100 million INR.
Okay, 10 crore. Got it. Okay. And second question is on the quarter's performance. So overall, the volumes have come down by about 14%, while the revenue is up by about 17%. So looks like, of course, the realization on an average has gone up by close to 35%. And if I were to look at the numbers you gave on realization on containers and others, looks like containers did not grow so much. So, was it the case that the realization on Ro-Ro and liquid grew to such an extent that it has contributed to this high amount of revenue growth despite a 15% fall in volumes? And if so, or because of the loss in transshipment volumes, has that also contributed to a better mix on containers? Like, just trying to understand this 30% realization growth if container realization has not grown too much.
Yeah, so your observation is right. It is mainly driven by the cargo mix. So if you look at the container, as Girish mentioned last year, we had a jet service which was doing transshipment for us. And transshipment, of course, comes with a much lower realization than an EXIM box. So yes, there's a bit of cargo mix benefit in the container business. Likewise, even in the other business, like if I look at bulk, then we have handled higher volume of fertilizers during the quarter, and that certainly helps in improving the realizations. So it's basically the cargo mix which drives this revenue upside. What do you compare?
Okay, understood. So if I were to look at the container volumes, if I were to strip out the transshipment volumes in the base of 1Q FY24 and also for this year, so EXIM volume you are telling would be flattish to a slight marginal decline. Is that understanding right?
Yeah, you're right.
For the quarter, you
And
mean?
For the quarter.
yeah, for the quarter, yeah. Understood.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then how much was this Jade service contributing on a yearly basis in container?
No, we don't actually really split it by, so we don't give really numbers by each service. So we're not able to give a number to that.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. And one more question. So we are hearing the last, say, few weeks to a month where a lot of concerns on global recessionary fears surfacing, be it in US and increased geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, etc. So, how do you view this development on the general container trade at global level and for India and finally for Pipavav? Even if you say eliminate the Red Sea issue, like if it were to get reverse the Red Sea issue, other than that, if this macro concerns are going to get severe, is it going to be an impact on Indian trade and hence Gujarat? What's your view on that?
So, I mean, it really depends on how things pan out. The geopolitical situations are a little bit red to our mind. I mean, especially now the Iran-Israel tension that is brewing up could potentially harm the India trade as we see it if it actually happens. So, I mean, I think we have to just keep a close watch. There are many things that we do not know at this point in time. I think the Red Sea crisis is not behind us. That will continue at least for this. Our assessment is at least for this year. Calendar year. I mean, we do not expect the Red Sea to improve over the next 5-6 months. Is our sense. So this is the new normal, and we have to kind of work in the new normal. What has also, of course, happened is there are some what we understand is at least the US. There's a recession fear, as you rightly said, but they're also building up inventories. So from that perspective, the trade may not be impacted that much because of the recession. So what we are seeing is that the inventory buildup is increasing because of actually this geopolitical environment. So from our perspective, I think Pipavav, as I said, while this quarter continues to be potentially tough, but we are already seeing tonnages getting back into our services that call us, and hence the back end of the year seems to be better than the first half of the year.
Okay, understood. So just one question. So when this Red Sea kind of an issue surfaces, shipping lines, they of course the only other alternative for them is to go around the Cape of Good Hope. So how does that happen? Do they do that, or do they like cancel the service itself or port calls itself?
No, they of course do that. But what that means really is that it adds number of days to the voyage, which really means that that much capacity is sucked out. So the assessment, global assessment, is about 15% of vessel capacity has been sucked out. It also means that the equipments which could return back to China, for example, in X number of days, now take X plus 20 days, and hence the equipment capacity gets sucked out. With the freight rates increasing between China, Europe, with where they are, the preference is that the equipments are pushed back more to China than to other countries, and hence, that further deteriorates the capacity of equipment and vessels in markets like India, and hence, in general, the skips start to happen. But again, then the shipping lines start to put in more equipment over a period of time and vessels in this whole trade, and things start to stabilize. And that's what we have started to see, that things have started to stabilize.
Okay, understood. Great. That's clear. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Deepak, I can see your hand raised. If you have a question, please go ahead. Yep.
Yes, please. I have a follow-up. So when you mentioned the realizations for the container segment, is it for the overall mix of containers or is it specifically to the EXIM containers?
No, it's all overall mix.
Okay, understood. And so this would typically range on the top end of the range or closer to the upper end of the range, given that transshipments have declined, isn't it?
That's it.
Okay, understood. And is there a possibility for you to share what would be the realizations for the RoRo segment? Because that is something which has bottomed out and is now clearly in a growth trajectory and will likely be a great driver for earnings. So if you could share some color on the realizations for RoRo.
So it's a bit early right now because we are just building a customer base. So as of now, at least we're not able to share, but maybe in the future.
Yeah. Also, I mean, we at least at this point in time, roughly two large customers. So it also gives away our commercial information that we like to protect.
Truly understand that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Doesn't seem to be the case.
So thank you. Thank you again. just wanted to say that the overall performance has been very positive against all the headwinds that we have. We look forward to continuing the performance and speak to you again after the next quarter results. Thank you.
Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.